Hello everybody, welcome. I'm Howard Neville, I'm the President of the Ireland chapter of ASHRAE, and welcome all this evening. Thanks very much for coming, and we have a fantastic evening for you tonight. We have three fantastic speakers. We have Nicola Jordan from Ethos. We have Ciaran McCabe from Passive Dynamics, thank you. Get my act together, thank you. And we have Colm Devin from Ethos Engineering, and Tunji Adiemi will be our host for this evening. I'll hand him over to you now in just 1 second. Again, I want to thank you all for coming, but I especially want to say thank you very, very much to our sponsors this evening. We have Systemair, who have always supported us so very, very well. We have Ethos Engineering. We have Passive Dynamics, who I will definitely remember now. Thank you. And we also have, no, where are they over here? Sorry. No. We don't have it's always at the back there, Thermo Heat, of course. So thank you very, very much. But also I want to thank Ardmac, who have always been staunch supporters of our mentoring and our YEA program, who have supported us all the way through, and hopefully will continue supporting us. The YEA, the Young Engineers of ASHRAE, is a fantastic program. The mentoring program has been going very, very well. We're into our second year. We have 10, I think, mentees paired with mentors. I'm a mentor as well, and going very, very well. Thoroughly enjoying it. It's a fantastic experience. If you're interested in going on to our next year, please reach out to anybody on the board, or anybody, any of the mentors or mentees who are involved, and most of them are here this evening. So please do. I want to thank every single one of you for coming along, and I want to welcome to all of our live streams here from hopefully people from around the world and around the rest of the Region 14. We have people here from Region 14. We have people all the way from our Hellenic chapter. So welcome here the evening. I can't quite see. Is that? Oh, there you are. Thanks very much. Okay. And the UK as well here. Alex, oh, there you are. There, how you doing, Alex? Good to see you. Thank you very much. Okay, and since we're all clapping, I will ask you to continue clapping for Tunji Adiemi, who will welcome our guests on. Thank you all.
The first victim is, drum roll please. Before I ask the next person to come on, I'd like to give just a little bit of a brief on them, just in case anybody doesn't know who they are, or haven't seen any of our LinkedIn posts that we went so heavily in pushing for this event. So our first speaker is a chartered engineer and the founder of Passive Dynamics, one of Ireland's leading consultancies in sustainability. With a vision to go beyond compliance and create buildings that genuinely perform, he has established Passive Dynamics as a trusted advisor to major clients across Ireland and the UK. An expert in energy efficiency, carbon reduction, and environmental performance modeling, this person has helped shape Ireland's sustainability design landscape through innovative, performance-led solutions. A guest lecturer in building services engineering at TU Dublin, that's where I studied as well. He is also passionate about mentoring the next generation of engineers and promoting a culture that balances excellence with well-being. Let us welcome Ciaran McCabe to the stage.
Thank you. I think I need to get you working on our marketing team.
Give your microphone just one click there on the bottom.
It's working there. Yeah,
lovely,
perfect.
Lovely. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. I can't take a marketing job. Sorry, I'm an engineer. But really appreciate you coming this evening. You were a speaker with us last year, so we thank you for that as well. A lot of people actually requested that you come again this year. So really thank you for joining us.
You're very welcome. I thought people had enough of me last year, but good to come back, and good to see so many young people join this. And I was just chatting to some of the guys there before, and when I was starting as a young engineer, this didn't exist. So it's great to see these organisations, and I'm very proud to play my small part in this. But it's very encouraging the work that you guys do behind the scenes. So I'm very happy to contribute in a small way towards that.
We appreciate that. Thanks very much. I think we'll go straight into the questions. Well, the first thing I'd like to discuss is, how did you start in your career, and how did you get to a place where you are today with Passive Dynamics?
So I suppose my career started, I suppose, a little bit by accident. I often kind of make the joke that, you know, if you do a really good Leaving Cert, it gives you loads of choices, which is good. But sometimes doing a bad Leaving Cert gives you no choices, so you're forced down a particular path, and that's what happened with myself. So I had lots of, I suppose, options on my CEO form, but my Leaving Cert wasn't great. And, you know, I even did construction studies in Leaving Cert, and there was one particular question I remember, U-value question, and it was a guaranteed question that would come up every year. I just couldn't get my head around it, so I forfeited those marks. Today, I do U-value calculations nearly every day. So, long story short, I suppose, I got offered building services in Bolton Street. It wasn't my first choice. I wanted to be a civil engineer, just didn't get the points. And studied there in Bolton Street for 3 years, doing an ordinary degree. Really got good foundations in engineering, which was brilliant. Then decided to continue my education and go over to Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh, where I went on to do an honours degree and then a master's. I think that whole section of my college life was, it kind of steered me in a particular direction, because soon after that I got a job with YEA, the software company in Glasgow, which it really opened up my mind in terms of the performance of building and how that needs to be measured, and all the opportunities that were there, you know, because when I started my career, it was very much a case of you got a set of drawings and you did your mechanical design, and the most challenging thing from an energy performance point of view was just Part L compliance. But you could actually do your Part L compliance calculations nearly on the day your building was getting PC. It wasn't really a great challenge. But in working with IES and understanding all those opportunities that existed by just making simple changes in buildings, you know, there's really a lot of low-hanging fruit. So that was really inspiring. And then I really wanted to get back to Ireland, and I was sending out my CVs willy-nilly, but this was right in the middle of the recession in Ireland, and I was very thankful to Ethos Engineering. It's great to be taking part with Colm here today. But Ethos offered me a job, which was great. Most other people were leaving the country at that point, and the civil engineer that I wanted to become at that time, or just previous to that, they were the people that were flying to Australia and Canada and places like that. So I was quite happy that I was a building service engineer. Got a great job with Ethos, and just reflecting on my days with Ethos at the time, it was very much a yes we can attitude in Ethos. And I think that again, going back to my career compass, that, you know, led me down to where I am today, because in Ethos it was very much a case that, you know, you did your best, you asked the right questions, you delivered a good product, all of that, and you challenged the status quo a little bit. And even what I'm doing today in Passive Dynamics, that essentially is what we're doing. We're looking at things differently. Just because it has been done in a particular way for 30, 40 years doesn't mean we need to continue doing that. So fast forward a couple of years, I worked with various M&E consultancies, and I suppose just before COVID, I was a bit kind of, my career wasn't going the direction I really wanted it to go. And in the middle of COVID, it gave me that space and that time to think about things. You know, you could do very little else during COVID. You had all that free space to think laterally. And I was probably going to change job anyway, but one person convinced me. They said, would you not think of maybe setting up your own business? So I said, well, do you know what? I'll give it a go for a little while. I've enough cash in the bank to probably keep me going for a few months. If it doesn't work out and I fail, I'm just going to fail very fast and move on. But thankfully, the first few months, while they were very, very tough, I could see the momentum going. There was enough work there for a second person, which was great. And then you sort of blink your eyes and then there's 16 people around you in an open plan office. So it has been a real great success story. But it wasn't the path that I chose when I was filling out my CEO form.
That's very interesting. Tell us, you've been open for 5 years now. We're in 2025. You started in the height of a pandemic. What made you take a jump like that at that particular time where most people would be more focused on security and not taking risk, especially in a time that's uncertain?
Well, I suppose I didn't really see it as risk at the time because sustainability, for the last probably decade has been growing quite strong. And, any building that's being built now, the carbon, the operation energy, that kind of has to be measured. And it's coming from kind of the funding even side of it. You won't get access to green finance unless your building has certain green credentials. So I thought the market was quite strong, and I thought, there's a good chance that this is going to work in my favor. I had good contacts. I had been managing sustainability within an M&E consultancy, so I knew I was kind of, able to do the job. I knew I was able to kind of communicate with clients, had a good contact base. And I suppose what I really wanted to do, and I didn't get the opportunity to do that previously, was to not just focus on one aspect of sustainability, which might be part-out compliance. I wanted to grow beyond that because I thought embodied carbon, for example, in buildings, that's a big ticket item that needs to be addressed. People were putting concrete and steel into buildings. There was nobody measuring that, but yet we were focused on, putting heat pumps in and lights and things like that. So I knew there was opportunities to look at carbon holistically, and there was great opportunities, and there wasn't great expertise in the country. Even things like thermal junction modelling, for example, very few people that could do that in the country. And I just thought, if I get a piece of that, there's a huge market there, because I'm really driven by, I suppose, not the compliance piece, but the performance piece and making buildings perform better. So it was, I suppose, challenging in the early days, but one of the things that I suppose worked in my favour was the fact that COVID was around, because I was working from my bedroom, didn't have really two pennies to rub together, but so was the rest of the world. So if I was going on a Teams call with a client, chances are the client was working from their living room or their bedroom as well. So that really worked in my favour. But I suppose to answer your question, I felt like I wanted to move anyway, and if this didn't work out in my favour, I was probably just going to move to another company. But I was willing to give it a shot because I thought there's a crest of a wave here, and this is becoming quite big, and I think there's huge opportunities, and there is. And even today, we're carrying out studies now that wasn't part of the business plan back in 2020. So the whole sustainability in the built environment is evolving at such a fast pace.
Okay, that's very interesting, and that actually leads me right into my next question is, what was the moment when you realized that you had to think differently from the industry around you? Because you've made mention of a couple of different things that you provide that no one else provides in the sustainability space. You saw that gap in the market early. But what was that thing that made you think differently from somebody else? Or rather, why weren't other companies willing to, adapt all those other things, in building performance and design?
Yeah, I think where I've learned the most lessons with buildings in particular is after the building is fully operational and the engines are running essentially. Because for quite a lot of my career, I lived in the kind of academic world of building a model, running your scenarios, printing off your report, and then that's the end of it. You forget about the building. But when I got more involved in that post-occupancy side of things, you then look at how the building is performing or not performing. You see where the energy is going in particular directions, and that wasn't part of the plan. So when I suppose, looked at all that and working with BMS systems and things like that and reviewing meter data, comparing that with the model, I just thought to myself, we're really missing a trick here. We're doing something that's quite wrong. We're clapping ourselves on the back if we get a LEED rating, LEED Gold, LEED Platinum, but nobody's asking the question about the actual building performance. So I suppose after working with some big clients where we looked at their portfolio, we looked at their performance, I thought to myself, we need to introduce another layer of energy modelling, get into that real detailed energy modelling. We often describe it as HVAC modelling in the industry. So we're not just modelling the building, the fabric, the glazing, the U values, the air tightness. It's much more than that now. There's another layer where we're drawing the schematics of the systems in the software. We're modelling the heat pump curves. We're modelling the fan curves. We're seeing where the opportunities are. We're giving clients a schedule of opportunities, and we're feeding that information into the mechanical engineers and the commissioning team that's going to be commissioning that building, who now need to know how that building needs to perform, and then we need to monitor the building afterwards. So I think it was reviewing all that with some clients, I realized, you know what, this industry maybe isn't in good shape. You know, we're getting LEED Platinums, we're getting all these awards, but nobody is actually looking at the data. So I think when you actually see the data, it really opens up your eyes in terms of how these buildings perform.
See, it's very interesting because a lot of the times, you know, just to get a project over the line, you would kind of, it's just a tick box exercise. We've achieved LEED Gold, that should be enough. Why did you want to go a step further? Because it doesn't really benefit you as much. You know, you could deliver the LEED Gold and get the same jobs as someone else that's doing that, but you're going a step further to show them exactly where the opportunities that they can be gained. You know, why take that extra step?
Well, I suppose the way I look at buildings, you know, you design a building, you construct a building, the building's going to be there for a long time, and it's for future generations. We're obviously doing this, we're a business, we're making money out of it, but all these, even just one building in isolation causes maybe a small percentage of the problem. But then if you have all these buildings that are not performing, that's additional carbon emissions. It's adding to the issues we have in the world with global warming and the temperature rise and things like that. So the way I would look at it as an engineer, I have a duty to do my small part to improve the performance of these buildings. It mightn't move the dial very much, but it will help. And I think if every engineer thought about it that way, like I even say to our guys who are doing commissioning, my colleagues, when you're walking around a building, you imagine you're paying the energy bills in this building. Think about it that way. Think about the excessive energy. Think that gets converted to carbon. That adds a problem to the world as well. So I think we have a duty of care to do that, because if we turn a blind eye to it, we're going to go backwards, you know, and we have a very small window of opportunity. We needed to have started 10, 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. We're only taking it seriously now. 2030 is around the corner, and I think it's going to be catastrophic if we don't start to do things right. So that's really what gets me up in the morning. If I can improve a building or a number of buildings a little bit, it'll help overall.
Okay. Now, another question that I'd have would be more focused on educating the people that are in the audience. They might not know what embodied carbon is. They might not know what sustainability design is, consulting is. Could you give a really high-level analysis of what it is that your business does and the section of the industry that you're tackling?
Yeah, so I suppose going back to what I had said just earlier, like when I started my career, it was very much a case you got a set of drawings, you did your design, and there was nobody really having any focus in terms of operation, energy, or carbon. Fast forward to where we are now, we're working with clients where we help them develop the sustainability brief for the building. So they know they need a building that conforms to all the latest standards, the latest accreditations, but they don't know how to get there. You know, they know where their destination is, but they don't know the route to get there. So we help them with that. We help to set them targets in terms of operation, energy, and embodied carbon. We set out benchmarks, we give them kind of a roadmap to get there. So it starts with that. We can also do compliance with building regulations. So obviously there's TGD Part L of the building regulations, which is a must-have. So we will do all the modelling to ensure that the buildings perform and there isn't excessive solar gain that drives up air conditioning demand and things like that. So that's the compliance piece. And then we would, as we said, we do detailed energy modelling. In terms of the embodied carbon, so that's all the components in the building, we will take from the QS, from the quantity surveyor, we will take their bill of quantities document, so that's a list of all the components in the building. We'll take that into our software. We, on a component by component basis, we'll work out the embodied carbon of each of those particular pieces of equipment. It will even take into account where the equipment is coming from, you know, so is it coming from Germany, is it coming from America or wherever? All of that is built into the software, and at the end of the day, what we're trying to achieve here is reduce the operation energy, reduce the embodied carbon, and also make the building functional and comfortable as well. So it's a lot of software analysis, it's a lot of kind of simulations. It's working with architects, it's working with M&E engineers. Traditionally, it used to be always working with architects and M&E, but now it's even working with civil structural engineers as well. So you're working with the wider design team, you're going on workshops, you're teasing things out, you're maybe having a couple of arguments with design teams as well. But even on projects now, we're trying to convince structural engineers, you know, when we look at even things like floor slabs, concrete, can we get away with less? Like, can we design certain things out? We're asking the questions. Some of the engineers in the business will say, yeah, I'll have a look at that. I'll see what I can do. I'll run my numbers again. Maybe I can get a better carbon result for you. Others are more challenging to work with. But essentially, the overall aim of the exercise is to make sure these buildings perform as energy efficiently as they can. And we often think that the car industry, for example, seems to be a little bit ahead of the building industry. You know, cars have all these features, you know, stop at traffic lights and the car shuts down. In my car, actually, if the tire pressure goes down, it updates me in terms of what my miles per gallon has now changed to. We need buildings to perform like that, because particularly since COVID, with the way buildings are occupied, like Mondays and Fridays, they're maybe not as heavily occupied as Tuesdays to Thursdays. We need the systems in these buildings to ramp down and run efficiently and operate based on demand. And so that's kind of our focus point, is make sure that everything runs and there's no wastage, basically, whether that be in terms of energy or carbon.
What is embodied carbon?
So embodied carbon, if you think, for example, this table that's beside me here, the components that went into this table, some of the raw materials might have come from the ground, for example. The embodied carbon quantifies taking those raw materials from the ground. It quantifies the transport of those materials to a factory where that table is maybe produced. It quantifies the embodied carbon in terms of the process of making that table. Then that table needs to maybe go to a warehouse to be stored. It needs to, you know, go to a building. All of that from the start of its life, basically, in the ground, all the way through to its end of life and when that's going to be recycled. So the embodied carbon is basically the carbon number associated with that. And typically, it's quantified in kilograms or tons. In buildings, we might set targets of kilograms per meter squared floor area. And there's various targets out there, like, for example, the RIAI have 2030 targets for buildings. So they would break it down for offices and residential, and they'll give you a particular carbon value. And why is that important? Because there's been some really interesting studies done. One that comes to mind is LETI in the UK. They've quantified with buildings that if we are to try and protect this 1.5, 2 degree temperature rise in the world, if we're trying to limit that point, we need the embodied carbon to be at a certain value and to not exceed that. Same with operation energy as well. So that's why we work so closely with calculating the embodied carbon. We're not doing it for the fun of it. We're doing this so that we can get the values down so low that we're not adding such a burden to the environment with all those extra carbon emissions. We're trying to protect that temperature rise. That's really where it stems from. But it's everything, full life cycle of a component.
Yeah. It's super interesting to see your passion about this particular topic. Who would have thought that, you know, someone that wasn't as smart as you might claim? I
wouldn't say that now.
Hearing this now, I doubt that you weren't that smart. But you know, looking back to that person compared to the one that you are now, and the zeal and a purpose for this industry, what words would you have for somebody that is currently where you used to be, kind of not knowing where you wanted to be and happy to take any opportunity that would have come your way? You know, what advice would you have given to your younger self with all the knowledge and experience that you have now?
Well, I think I would say to younger engineers, always ask why. You know, keep questioning why things are done. Because I've worked in engineering firms where there was a tendency to just rinse and repeat a little bit. You know, maybe the senior engineer always did it that way, so he would tell the junior engineer, this is how we do it, this is why we select the flow and return temperature of this is common practice. But, you know, in the industry we work in now, what won't get us there alone is just energy efficient equipment at component level. That's no longer kind of good enough. We need to move to system level. We need those systems to operate as efficiently as possible. And it's even the small things like flow and return temperatures to chillers. It's heat pump curves, fan curves. if we can get all those things right, and that's where the real engineering is. The real engineering is not selecting a heat pump or not selecting a fan or contacting a supplier to, here's my heat load, can you give me a heat pump? It's more than that. It's going down to a lower level where you're thinking of the system. How is this system going to operate? And if anybody is involved in building performance simulation, for example, it's not just that peak load, it's running your analysis over the entire year, looking at your base load, looking at when did the peaks happen, how can I now select a piece of equipment based on that. It's not just one. We shouldn't be selecting equipment based on one number. We should be selecting equipment based on what happens over the entire year. So I would certainly be asking why. I would be challenging things. Going to events like this is good because it's an opportunity to network. Talk to suppliers, talk to people in other aspects of the industry. Keep informed all the time. Read journals. I wasn't particularly good at reading some of the monthly journals that comes out. I'm much better at it now because I need to know the answers. I'm working with clients, so I need to make sure that I have the answers. LinkedIn is a great resource. When I walk around our open plan office and I see guys using LinkedIn, it's nearly as good as seeing them using a software program that we have, because there's lots of knowledge there, and you've older people writing articles, and you've younger people writing articles, and there's huge knowledge in all of that. But I would certainly, I would be a believer of challenging the status quo, not just doing a repeat model.
I have one more question, but I don't want to be selfish. I'd like to bring it out into the audience. If anybody has any questions they'd like to ask, please raise your hand and we'll have a microphone brought to you. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, we have one in the back there.
Just introduce yourself. Hi, I'm Ronan from Ethos. And I wanted to ask, with the rise of AI and its environmental impact, do you find that there's a use for that in your company, or is the environmental risk too high for using it as opposed to the gain that you get out of using it?
That's a really good question. There's certainly good gains. We do use AI in the business, and it's time efficient, for going through a lot of data, a lot of analysis, data analytics and things like that, and even things like writing executive summaries and reports, because obviously we write a lot of reports, and I'm a believer that the executive summary is the most important page in the report, because that's what people will read. So it can be great at summarizing information. So I certainly think there's huge benefits, and I think in terms of the analysis that we carry out, it's only going to get better and better, and it's going to get quicker, and that's really important, because we do a lot of analysis on buildings, and you can imagine that if we're slow at getting that information back to the design team, the opportunities might be lost at that stage.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of the carbon emissions, I wouldn't be an expert on that, in terms of you have obviously all these data centers, and they're ramping up every time I ask ChatGPT to do something. I would be concerned about that, certainly, but I think it can be managed as well. We know obviously there's a lot of equipment behind all that, but if we can generate that energy as efficiently as possible, if we can harness the heat from some of these data centers and reuse them to as part of district heating schemes and things like that, I don't think we need to shy away from the new technology. I think if we can use it to our advantage in some way or another. So that would be my answer to that.
Thank you.
That's a good question. Do we have another one? Okay.
The one thing I would actually just say, and just to finish up, obviously I started my business and it was really, really challenging in the early days. But even if you're not thinking of starting a business, because I'm conscious not everybody in the room is going to be starting a business, but if you're thinking of, I want to progress my career, I want to move to the next level, I'm very contactable, and I love working with young people. So if anybody wants to reach out to me, send me a message on LinkedIn. I'll meet you for a coffee. If I can help in any way, I'd be really happy to do that. So if you don't have a question now, but you feel like, and I said the same thing last year as well, and people did actually reach out to me. So very happy to help anybody if they're working their way through their career and just want to get a little bit of advice.
No, I think that's absolutely great. People should absolutely use formats like this, to gain potential mentors for yourself, because I have a mentor and that person guided me through my career, so it would be very recommended. Do you have mentors, and what impact have mentors had in your career up until this point?
They've had a big impact, and I wouldn't say I ever had a series of mentors in a formal sense, but I've worked with people, and even colleagues and ex-colleagues in Ethos as well, who I would have kept in contact with, and other companies as well. Particularly the older generation, you'll learn a lot from the older generation. You know, they've been there, done that, they've made the mistakes, they've learned from them. That has been really, really important. And there's one particular guy that I've worked with for maybe 10 years before setting up the business, and I would really keep in contact with him, you know, because if I have an issue, he's seen that issue before, he knows how to get around it. And I think in engineering, a lot of that is sort of knowing how to handle the situation. You know, you might not always know the answer, you might find yourself in a tricky little cul-de-sac, but somebody else has been there before. So from that perspective, I found it really, really interesting. But I've never had a formal mentor. Maybe I could do it one. Yeah, advice is key, you know, and being efficient with your time and knowing how to work with clients. And that's, I think, where mentors can become really useful.
I think that's great. Sorry to put you on the spot like this, but would you be open to take a mentee?
Absolutely,
Lovely.
absolutely.
Okay.
I'm a member of CIBSE as well, and I'm not formally a member of ASHRAE, but after tonight I definitely will be, because I see the great work that you do, and I know you have the mentor program. I definitely like to contribute to that, and I would be encouraging members of my own company to form part of that as well. So be delighted to do that. Yeah.
That's amazing. Ciaran, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Did we like that? Yeah? Okay. Thank you so much, Ciaran. Let's give him another round of applause. Okay, so our next speaker, before we take a short 5-minute break, in case anybody's feeling sleepy, is the technical director of DPS Group Global, Arcadis Ireland, and a chartered engineer with over 30 years of experience across the full project lifecycle, from concept programming through to completion. A graduate of Dublin Institute of Technology, she has led multidisciplinary teams on some of Ireland's most complex construction projects, particularly within the microelectronics and clean room sectors. Known for her collaborative leadership and technical depth, this person has been instrumental in driving coordination and communication between design and construction teams to deliver world-class specification-compliant facilities. She currently serves as a client CSA project manager for a large-scale semiconductor development here in Ireland. Let us welcome Nicola Jordan to the stage. Nicola, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Lovely to be here.
Really appreciate it. I know you were on holidays for a good bit of the communication. So first, how was the holidays?
Fantastic.
That's
yeah,
good.
I
That's
was
good.
Over with one of our offices over in the Philippines, working with them and doing some team building. So that was really exciting. And then I took a break over in Australia. So
Very nice. Yeah, you got a nice tan. You look like my cousin.
I'm ready to be back.
That's great. Well done.
Back at work.
Yeah, so I'd like to first start going into a little bit about your career. Where did you start, and how did you get to this current, position that you're in?
Yeah, not a straightforward career path.
Even better.
I have an architectural background, so the role I'm in at the moment, I'm working with mechanical process and electrical engineers, but started with a very small consultancy and was doing, producing construction drawings for small kind of domestic and commercial projects, and doing everything from sitting with the clients, producing the drawings, being out on site, doing the kind of the follow-up, the snagging of the building. So it was a really rounded first 5 years where every aspect of the construction industry at a small scale I was working on. So that was really good grounding. From there, I joined Jacobs for a short period and then decided to move down the country and had a family. So during that period I was working part-time and full-time at various times. So I was doing 3-day weeks, 4-day weeks in architectural consultancy practices. Went out, worked on my own as well, working for, as kind of, I suppose, a consultant, working for other architectural practices, supporting them in the production of construction drawings and documents and support during construction. And then the recession hit. So we were just starting to build a really level kind of grounding in work. We had a very stable business, and before even you could see it in the broader industry, we lost clients who were kind of saying, we need to put things on hold. These would have been there was some investment bankers in particular, they could see things coming, and everybody started to kind of drift away over the period of the summer of, I think it was 2008. So from there, we kind of closed down the company. I ended up working as a general manager in a language school for a year as well, just to keep things moving along, and then decided I'd had enough of that, and I took a little bit of a break as well. I was able to do that for a while, and then I decided I want to go back into construction, and I rang up the agent that I worked with or through previously, and he to see if there was any work, and he said, actually, there's a role has just come up on a large project that was just starting out, a large industrial project, and you're perfect for the role. So I went out, I interviewed, and I got the role, and it was a 3-month contract. 12 years later, I'm still working with the same client, not the same role, but it's kind of still in the same industry. And from there, have gone from just a project engineer role. I went over to Israel with the same company that I kind of joined DPS, who are now Arcadis. Went over to Israel as a clean room project engineer, which was a fantastic experience in terms of projecting. Kind of my career just took a leap forward. I was dealing with the corporate side of things with the client, but I was also dealing with the construction side, dealing with different cultures, and driving the project forward from an owner's representative perspective. And from there, came back to Ireland, was in the office doing kind of small projects with DPS, and I kind of mentioned to my boss, I'm bored, and I'm not going to do that again, because before I knew it, I was back out on site, ended up on a project that was really, really challenging for about 14 months. Got that across the line. I was just a part of it in terms of it was a construction manager for the general contractor that we were working on. And from there then ended up being involved in one of the largest construction projects in Europe at the time, through COVID as well. So the site shut down, opened up again, very challenging again as an owner's representative. And then DPS were opening up a design group for semiconductor, and it was a role, that design manager role specifically was a role I always wanted to do. I applied for the job internally and was successful, and then that was when I joined the EPCM team that I'm working on. And from there, from design manager then, the engineering director left the company, and I was offered the position to take over as technical director. So in DPS, the group we're in, we've gone from zero standing, albeit within a larger organisation, to we were up to about, on the engineering side, nearly 100 people. We're kind of back down to about 60 at the moment in the space of about 4 years. So that was really, again, challenging for me personally, but I think for the whole team as well. We went from a fairly chaotic start, and we're now kind of at the stage of a fairly rounded group, and again, a stable group. So it, in and of itself, was a project to build the team and to get to where we are at the moment. So that's kind of, I kind of arrived here by accident, I would say, more than anything, rather than design.
That's good. It worked out in the end.
It did.
That's good. Happy to hear that. Okay, so my first question is, in your 3 decades of experience, what separates engineers who grow quickly and then those who stay at the same level for years? Because you had done it on multiple occasions. You said you made a leap. It's not like it was by accident you made the leap. There was definitely a lot of work that you had put in the background to, give. Usually people say you have to perform at the next level. So it's a natural progression. So I'm sure that was the case.
Yeah,
from your experience.
I think, and I'm conscious I'm speaking to, ASHRAE mechanical engineers, and I don't have a mechanical background, but I think regardless of the engineering background, I think engineers solve problems. That's kind of at the core of what everybody does. But when you're working with a group, and I work with kind of large and small teams, there's a few things. I think communication is key, and that's communicating with the team, it's communicating with the client, it's the trade contractors on site. It is an intrinsic part of what you do, even though it's not technical. And I think watching people who are really good communicators, it allows them to get to the nub of the problem very quickly and solve it very quickly and be able to move a project forward. I would also say resilience is one other aspect that, as an engineer or working in construction, projects can be fairly brutal. You know, as you go through them, some of them are nice and you walk away and you enjoy it. Others, you come away with scars, and I think Ciaran was saying, you know, there's always somebody who has had the same problem that you're probably encountering. So you do, some days you go in and you think that you're just, this is relentless. You know, there's problems coming at you the whole time. It will pass and you do get through it. I mean, that's the one certainty, that the project life cycle is, it does come to an end. That's the one thing I enjoy about working in engineering, is the projects do come to an end. They are successful. You know, degrees of success is usually measured in different ways. So I would say practice resilience. I think it's hugely important, and be persistent. And I think Ciaran mentioned why, you know, be inquisitive. Always ask, why are we doing it this, you know, such a way? Sometimes you have to just go with the status quo, but those who kind of seek out the solutions rather than just doing the same thing again, I think they are the people that stand out for managers when they see people who are solving problems, not being the problem. You know, and coming up with solutions rather than coming back to the managers with the problem. They're coming with options, so that that's how projects move forward. And then not being afraid to make decisions with kind of sometimes ambiguous information. Sometimes you have to come with the solution, even though it may not be, you may not have all of the information. Sometimes the decision has to be made based on what you know, and then adjusted as you go forward. So I think it's probably quite non-technical, but things that do make the technical people stand out above the crowd, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. So we have communicate problems quickly and also solve them quickly. Resilience, and having a mind frame of this too shall pass.
Yes.
You know, persistence and inquisitiveness. And operating in ambiguity. That's probably a lot of the things that people operate in. You know, you don't know what the answer is, and nobody might know what the answer is. But how would you recommend, or from your experience, how would you get over that ambiguity? Where would you start, you know, in trying to break down a problem?
Usually it's again, it goes back to communication. So if you sit, and you can see it sometimes on projects where there's a problem and somebody is sitting there and they're sitting with the problem themselves. Often talking to one of your colleagues, you go with the problem, you're kind of teasing it through, and I often come away from those discussions without the person having given me the answer. I actually talk myself into the answer. So I think that's one thing. You kind of just sometimes need a sounding board. When you have kind of very ambiguous information, you have to make assumptions, and they have to be credible, but you do have to kind of just document them, use them as the basis of how you're making the decision. You might be wrong, and everybody makes mistakes in projects, but they can be adjusted, and if you have documented them well, you then know you can go back and redo them if things change, because circumstances invariably change throughout a project. Construction is not, and engineering from a construction perspective is not an exact science. There are exact elements of it, but the situations constantly can change, and particularly fast-moving environments in construction. Sometimes decisions are made and kind of revisited later. That would be kind of a regular occurrence, I think, on engineering.
Interesting. And then in terms of resilience, because that's another one, and I know a lot of people do deal with that. They might have a bad manager, they might have, someone that, is giving them a hard time at work, or even, potentially a client that's giving them a really hard time. How would somebody build that resilience muscle without having to, you know, because they can't be on a million bad projects at the same time, you know. So how would that typically happen, you know, if you want to build that?
I think even in difficult projects, it's kind of sometimes trying to pause and recognize the positives as well. So, you know, even sometimes when it does feel very negative and there's lots of problems, trying to find kind of some of the bright spots. Ask for help. You know, don't underestimate how generous people are with their time and their information and their knowledge. And if you don't get help from the first person you ask, go to somebody else. And it's not a sign of weakness. I mean, there is nobody that knows everything. So even people who are hugely experienced, they don't know the answer. They will go to somebody else who does. So it's trying to, and the networking is really important with that. When you get knocked down, you kind of get up and go again. You have to kind of dust yourself down, and that's easier said than done. But I think anybody who's been in projects, you know, there are days when you come in and you go, the day couldn't get any worse, or the problems keep coming. But you kind of come in the next day expecting the worst, and there's something positive will happen. And as I say, ask for help and reach out to people. And that networking, don't underestimate that as well, because the people around you will help you get through that. And again, in the construction, as I said, that's the background. Sometimes when you're in the middle of the really tough projects, the people around you will bring you along, because down on site, when you're walking it with trade contractors, with the fellow engineers and colleagues, it can be fun even in the darkest of times, you know, so don't be afraid to have that. Dark humour will bring you through. And I think the Irish culture is particularly good at seeing the humour in the dark side. And sometimes you look back on those difficult projects and with a little bit of fondness, but with the scars, you know, and the learnings from it. So it's why I think a lot of people do projects, is because they are cyclical. You get through them, and then you look back and look at what we've built or what we've achieved with positivity. So that would be...
Oh, that's great. Thank you for that. The next question, let me not be selfish once again. I keep thinking about myself, forgive me. Do we have anyone out in the crowd that would have any questions? Perfect, no problem. The next question I have is, looking back, where your current position is, you probably didn't think you'd be here at the very beginning of your career. What advice, looking back now, would you have given to yourself as a young architect, you know, not knowing what the environment is looking like, you know, in their career, and where you could potentially go? What were some fears that you had back then that, you know, you'd be able to kind of advise to somebody that's, you know, 20 to 25?
Yeah, I suppose, again, looking back at 30 years ago, there wouldn't have been the organisations, that they weren't there to the same degree. And I suppose I didn't get involved in the networking. And if I were to go back now, I would say CPD is hugely important. Keeping up with what's going on. Things change constantly. Again, you know, you could say what are the advances in the industry? Every year something is changing. It's not a static industry. So that CPD element, always trying to find, you know, new ways of working. You'll do that by continuing to kind of broaden out your horizon and learn from others. And it doesn't have to be formal. It can be working on different projects. It can be, you know, giving or doing some presentations. That all helps with your continuing kind of how to get to where you need to be. Networking, I think, would be one area where, and this is the importance of something like this. It's something I didn't do at the start of my career, and I still don't particularly enjoy it. I'm going to say it's not something that sits comfortably with me, but it's something that is hugely important, because the broader your network, you actually can, it's important when you do need the help and you learn from each other. And we are social beings. I mean, I think so it's important to have that aspect. And I think what I would say, it wasn't relevant when I was young and kind of coming into my career, but I think particularly post-COVID, and we were talking about it just before we kicked off here, I think the importance of coming into the office, if you have that opportunity, because the water cooler talk, you're collaborating in a room. I think you hear things that you wouldn't necessarily hear when you're sitting at home. So when you're being asked to come into the office, I think it's important to come in, try and sit with other colleagues across different disciplines in particular. You will learn a lot from others, and that's something that when you're sitting at home you don't necessarily do. And then just lastly, I would say when you are working on Teams, and again something I don't particularly like doing is turn on the camera, and because one of the things that's missing when you are sitting at home that wasn't there when I was starting out is looking into the white of another person's eyes to see, have you understood, or there's a lot to be said for that, and it comes down to communication. Communication is one of the things that I keep, and I'm talking to my team about it as well. It's hugely important, and it's not just talking to people, it's actually listening to what other people have to say. And I think they're things that, as I say, they set you apart as an engineer, because I'm assuming that the technical is something you learn as you go in college. The softer skills are the ones that actually will drive you through your career, because people like working with people they like to work with. They don't like to work with people who are negative. So it's keeping that positivity, I think, is hugely important.
That's great. Well, just to piggyback off that, if you could go based on a percentage of soft skills and technical skills, what would be the percentage split on the people that you would typically see that would kind of excel in their careers?
It kind of depends on the role that you're playing. I'm going to say, I think from the site-based side of things, and working as a kind of, when it was much more on the construction kind of side of things, because trade contractors know how to build buildings and how to install systems, we know how to design them, but sometimes we design them in a way that they're difficult to build. So listening to people, so that kind of soft skills when you're down on site, and the collaboration that happens there, 50-50, but when you're actually designing, you need the more technical, but it's not a much higher aspect of it, because you don't design typically things on your own. You have to integrate your systems in buildings. So it's not just, if people were just designing in isolation or engineering in isolation, we probably wouldn't be as innovative as when we're working. So, I suppose 70-30, there's soft skills are hugely important in order to progress projects, so I wouldn't underestimate it, for sure.
It's very interesting. Well, Nicola, thank you so much for your time.
Perfect.
Really appreciate you coming down, especially on the short notice.
Yeah,
so
no,
we
that's
thank
okay.
you. Let us
Thank
give
you.
her a round of applause, please. Oh, sorry, Nicola, I think we had one more question in the back. I did ask.
Go for it.
Fire away.
Just really quickly, sorry to bring you back. I had a question about the communication stuff, because I just started working and I've had a couple breaks on a call, and I still dream about them at night. So how do you get better at communication? Like, did you have to go for Toastmasters? Did you have to pay somebody? Because like people say get better at communication, but like how do you get better at it? It's just you get better the more you do it.
It's practice, and I think I've they're adult kids now, but you see a lot of, and I'm going to say the get off the phones. There's nothing like actually having a conversation, and kids sitting at either end of the couch and texting each other. So I would say there's lots of, LinkedIn was mentioned, LinkedIn Learning, there's lots of courses that you can get. YouTube will have courses. Watch comedians. Like I was at a conference recently, or it's a couple of years ago, but he was a comedian that actually gave a talk on communication, and he used a quote from George Bernard Shaw, which is, the problem with communication is the illusion that it has happened. So in that, it's kind of, people talk at each other. Yeah. So I think practice your listening skills, and then when you're listening, I often will repeat back what I've heard in a different way to, somebody, particularly with a complex question, and you've different people have different opinions, you kind of repeat back what you've heard. People will then go, no, that's not what I said. So it's kind of, you have to use the muscle to get better. but use the resources that are out there on YouTube, LinkedIn Learning. Toastmasters, I've never done, so I would say, yes, it's probably a tool to use, but the effective listening is probably a critical part of communication that can be lost. And I'm going to say on Teams calls, when you've got a group of people, and that's why I say cameras on Teams call, they're all working away on their laptop, and you're having conversations, and people are having to repeat themselves. So listening, repeat back in a different way, not just a straight repeat back, but re-articulate what you've heard so that it's demonstrating you've internalized it, and just practice it, and not practice through, you do have to write emails occasionally, but I think it's the talking. There's nothing like talking and listening, and as I say, I'm not sure what other kind of advice I can give you on that.
Just to piggyback on that, I think it's very important, and I've heard it with people. It's like if you want to be understood, seek first to understand others, you know, and once you do that, then you know, the law of reciprocity will be in your favor. So really appreciate that, Nicola.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
I think we have one more question. One more question.
Right.
Sorry, one more question.
One more question. Oh wow.
Right.
Okay.
Hi, I just wanted to ask how your experience has been as a female engineer, and if you've faced any challenges and have you overcame any of them?
Yeah. Good question, because I've done a bit of soul searching on this recently, because as I was coming up, a lot of the time I actually, you know, didn't really see that there were any challenges. And then we've kind of got an informal group within Arcadis of women engineers that we've just, one of my colleagues down at work has set up. And it's made me really think about what are the challenges. And there have been advantages, I'm going to say, on the construction side, and some of it is, maybe it's my personality, but not being, as I say, down on site, often when you go down to the construction team, they don't like you to feel that they've disappointed you. So sometimes, and being kind of the mum side of things, going, that's not, you know, you can have conversations in a way that I think my male colleagues couldn't have with people on site, with the guys on site. That being said, there are challenges. I think that one of the things that women, and I suffer from it at times as well, is underestimating your value. I think is one thing that is, there's a gender difference. It's not that one is better or worse, but I think that if I look at some of the engineers, and we were doing some skills capability matrices recently, and some of the, you know, all of the kind of input came in, and a lot of the female engineers were actually scoring themselves down, and I would have gone, they're actually some of my top performers. So I haven't had huge challenges, but it can be challenging, and you have to be fairly resilient and tough and straight talking, you know, and not take things personally as a female engineer in particular, because I think, and this is, it's something that we can feel that things are very targeted to personally. If somebody says that you don't know what you're talking about, or you know, that you're not as good as somebody else, you have to kind of tough it out, because you've gone through college, you've all got in, you've scored the points in the CAO, you've got your degrees, you're just as much right as anybody else to be in the position that you're in. And you have to kind of drive through, as I say, the imposter syndrome. I suffer from imposter syndrome sometimes quite badly. And you kind of have to just drive through it and acknowledge it, but keep going. And it comes back to the resilience. But I would have had, you know, less or more opportunities. I don't know whether it has been a differentiator for me personally, but I can see some of the challenges with some of the women that I talk to on a regular basis in the group that I'm in, and some of the things that they've had comments that at meetings from talking to some women. So that it can be, I think, for the men kind of within engineering, just to be mindful of some of the language they use, that it can be confronting to women, and some have developed a shield for it, and I would say I'm like that. It goes over my head. I don't even hear it anymore. others it can be confronting, and I think it's for everybody just to be aware of it. So I hope that answers. As I say, I didn't have huge issues as I was coming through, but I was just blissfully unaware. I think might have been it more than anything else. Great. Okay.
Well, Nicola came to give a talk, not run a marathon. So does anybody else have any questions before she goes back to her seat?
Oh, an awkward one.
No. No, I won't. I just follow on the comment you made, because the construction industry, like other industries, particularly in construction, is dominated by men. And there's two sides to the coin. Is men need to be educated. We men need to be educated in how to deal in conversations.
Yeah.
And the other side of the coin is women coming into the workforce into this area have to learn how to understand behavioural styles. So it's one of the things we do within our mentorship program. And you mentioned the imposter syndrome. So I do work with ISBE with women in pharma as a mentor. And it's interesting, we had a conversation last year on the imposter syndrome. Okay, and there was 2 females on my team and 2 males. And the 2 men thought the imposter syndrome was fake it until you make it. Okay, and the women had an opposite view, and the imposter syndrome was that I really can't do it and I shouldn't be here. Well, that indicates the divide in this, but I mean, it's a much bigger subject, but it's one that the industry has to work on much better, but it's not the onus on the women in construction. In my view, it needs to be a re-engineering and a refocusing of how men behave in the wider environment. Purely a comment, okay?
Yeah. No, and sorry, I would add just in terms of you know, you were talking about the imposter, the fake it till you make it, and those that I'm not good enough. I think everybody is different. It doesn't matter. It's not male, female. It's everybody has their own demons and their own way of dealing with things. So it's really to be, I suppose, kinder to each other in some ways. It is a very soft thing, but sometimes that allows the innovation. When people are in a kind of safe environment, it does allow for a much more energetic and innovative atmosphere for people to work in. So it is just to be aware of it, call it out if you see it. You know, it's not on to have comments around, you know, you're moody or you're on your period, something like that. That has happened to some of my colleagues. I would say that everybody is emotional. Just the emotion comes out in different ways. As an example, men will punch walls typically, and women might cry. That's anger in 2 different ways. It's expressed differently. So I think it's acknowledging it manifests itself differently. And I think that, as I say, I've really enjoyed working in the construction industry for 30 years. It can be tough at times, but it can be great fun. So I think it's, again, going back to that positivity, try and embrace it and enjoy it. But, you know, stand your ground and be yourself, because I think that's really the other thing, is just to be authentic as much as you can. That's it then, hopefully.
That's great.
That's all the questions.
Is that it? She stands up now and someone puts a hand up. All right. Thanks so much. Okay. Are we having a good time? Yeah. Wow, that was very quiet. Are we having a good time? Yeah. Okay, much better, thank you. So what we'll do is we're going to take a quick toilet break for anyone that needs to use the bathroom or to grab a drink, and we'll come back in 5 minutes, starting now. All right?
way back into time.
Fantastic Four.
12 Steps
is now streaming on Disney+.
Check it out.
Are you the protectors of this world?
Yes, we are.
Your planet is now marked for death. Your world will be consumed by the Devourer. There is nothing you can do to stop him, for he is a universal force, as essential as the stars. Hold your loved ones close, and speak the words you've been afraid to speak. Use this time to rejoice.
Okay, everybody, if we can make our way back to our seats, please. Thank you. All right. And we are going to start our next segment. But before we start, I just want to let everyone know that after this talk, we have a lot of food that's coming out from the kitchen. The doors are going to be locked because, Ciaran's here and he won't let anyone leave if we waste anything, right? So we have to eat every bit of food that is here because we spent money on it. So please, let's eat the food, okay? And then after that, we are going to make our way to Wetherspoons around the corner. After we finish all of the food, every last bit of it, we'll go to Wetherspoons around the corner, and then, we'll finish up there. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So, and before that as well, I would like to actually ask a question. For all of the students that are here, could you stand up? Because we'd like to see, oh wow, we have a lot of students. Wow. Okay, that is amazing. So we have a lot of students here. I know a bunch of you guys came to me. I promised them a building. I was doing a guest lecture during the week. I promised them that they'd have a building if they came to the event, so they came. I don't know if you came because you were interested or you came to get a building for your final year project, but I'm going to assume the latter, all right? So that's what we'll do. Thank you so much. So please speak to Mr. Senior at the back. Please put your hand up. Or Alex or Howard on how they can support you in your journey, so we can keep you plugged in to these events, okay? Great, thank you so much. The next person that is coming on stage is one of the founding directors of Ethos Engineering. He is the Chief Commercial Officer, bringing over 30 years of industry experience and nearly 2 decades of leadership within Ethos. He has played a central role in the company's growth from an ambitious Irish startup into a people-first international consultancy recognized for technical excellence, innovative sustainable engineering across all of Europe. I would know, I was there, amazing company to work for. As the CCO, this person leads Ethos's global commercial strategy with a strong focus on the data center expansion. Strategic partnerships and long-term client relationships. He was instrumental in securing investment from Exponent Private Equity and remains committed to developing future leaders while upholding the core Ethos values of ambition, trust, excellence, and putting people at the heart of everything. If we can put our hands together as we welcome Colm, Devin. grey button on the back. Yeah,
Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you for being with us today, Colm. We really appreciate it. As one of the founding members of Ethos, you're quite famous in the industry because you just...
Infamous, I think.
Yeah. He's just had a big, acquisition from, and you're also acquiring a bunch of companies as well at the moment. I know Sim Studio was just one of them, and there's probably another couple of announcements that are going to come in the year. So there's a lot of things that are happening in Ethos, and everyone has their eye on it. So we're very privileged to have Ethos Engineering in the building with us today, and they're also our diamond sponsor. So let's give them a round of applause, please.
Thank you very much.
So Colm, please take us through your career. Something very interesting about Colm is that he's only worked with 2 companies in his whole life, which is, pretty crazy. And I just wanted to preface that so maybe we can go into a little bit more detail on it. And maybe some people might have some questions. So please, take us through your career journey. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, I was just talking to Ciaran as he came back down and I said, thanks, Ciaran, for stealing everything that has happened to myself. But yeah, 30 years in the business. I left secondary school in 1990 and went into Bolton Street. At the time, it was called Bolton Street, and did building services engineering, and it was the diploma course. Now, like Ciaran, it wasn't my first choice. I wanted to follow in the footsteps of my father, who owned a small local construction company. And at that time, construction studies, the points for that actually went sky high, and building services came down. So I was actually very, very lucky to get building services. So I studied a diploma, and luckily I got enough points to go into a degree, and decided. And I was working after my third year. I was actually working in a construction industry in Cork for a summertime job, and I actually had to make that decision. Do I want money, or do I want to go back and do my degree? And thankfully my parents and my older brother and sister both encouraged me, said, get college out of the way, money will come, career will come afterwards, get the education up front. So thankfully I listened to them, and did next 2 years and was successful. So in 1995, so many years ago, it's a long time, nearly can't remember, it was actually a very, very tough time in Ireland. There wasn't a lot of work out there. There was only a few big construction companies building at the time, and Intel was one of those. And I was lucky enough to get a commissioning engineer's work with a company called EEL at the time. They were a consultancy similar to Ethos, but they also did commissioning. And I spent my first 9-10 months of my career in Intel on the top of a clean room fab, sticking tape to ductwork that had ripped, mopping up leaking pipes, balancing grills, and you name it, we did it in the commissioning. My first week in Intel, I walked in and I was told, oh, by the way, you're working the weekend. And this was new to me. I hadn't worked a full week in my life, let alone in Intel. So I was there for nearly 60 hours, working hard. And I think it was a great grounding that I got straight away. After that, 10 months in Intel, I was asked then by the manager of the company, would I come back into the consultancy side of the company, which I said, yeah, I'd be delighted to. And that started my career as a young junior building services engineer, but my bias was on mechanical engineering, but my title was building services, so I had to learn both mechanical and electrical. That sort of, I grew into that over a number of years. I worked my way up from a junior engineer to design engineer to a project engineer, and eventually as a senior project engineer. And in 2005, myself and the current CEO of Ethos were working together, Greg Hayden, and a number of our other colleagues. We decided that we'd take the leap of faith and set up our own company, Ethos Engineering, in 2005, which was a daunting task at the time because my wife was heavily pregnant with a month to go on our second child, and I was telling her, oh, by the way, I'm leaving Ethos, a steady job, good money, and we're going to go out and set up a new company with a couple of the lads from the office. So since then, now 20 years later, we've gone from 6 engineers setting up Ethos, and we're actually around 250 strong now at this stage.
Well, that's very, impressive. Can we go into a bit more detail as to, that risk that you took? Like, what made you believe in that so much? Because you had a young family already. That's already kind of risky business to do that. And then on top of that, she's 1 month to go, so she's not in the mood to hear anything that might be not, anything crazy. So you kind of have to walk on eggshells. I have a newborn, so this is kind of the experience, especially at that time. How did you, get over that? And how did you smooth it over afterwards as well, just so I can take that for myself?
Well, there was no smoothing over. My partner was fully supportive, which was great. And it's key that you need full support from your family for yourself to be successful. So first and foremost, your family is your rock. But myself and the CEO Greg Hayden and the other executive director John Coroner and also Gary O'Keefe and Paul Tighe, the 6 of us, or the 5 of us, sorry, we had decided that we wanted to do something different in the industry. At the time, mechanical and building services engineering consultancies sort of did performance specifications, sort of outlined designs, and then handed it over, and the contractor took it from there and nearly did what they like. And that wasn't us. We wanted it to be different. We wanted to be more ethical. We wanted to be the client's representative and a true representative for the client. And we said that we're going to set up a company that they can trust in us, that we are not going to be dependent on suppliers, putting a supplier in so they know they're going to get the job and they can do the design for us. So we set out with a clear objective and target that we were going to do it right. I had the utmost trust and confidence in my colleagues, and without that, I don't think I would have made that leap of faith. I just knew that we were going to be successful. I didn't know what success was going to look like, but I knew we would be successful. And with that team that we were setting off on this journey, we had probably some of the best engineers that I've ever come across in Ireland. So it was never going to fail.
Well, that's amazing. And at the very beginning, could you take us through some of, or what it looked like at the very beginning of Ethos in 2005? It's bootstrapping. It's almost like, cowboys, trying to figure it out, get the job over the line. Like, what did that look like in a more of a culture thing where you're trying to establish culture, you're trying to establish, the business as itself. You don't have all of the solidified systems that you have now. Give us a picture of what that looked like back then.
Definitely it was different than it is today, but similar. As I said, there was 6 of us. We did a large project. It was our first project. Was a Beacon Hospital in Sandyford. So it was a very, very big project we had to deliver, but we all had to deliver. And similar to what Ciaran was talking about earlier on, you had to do everything. So you were doing the invoicing, you were the receptionist, you had to change the toilet paper ran out, so somebody had to go out and do that. You had to wash up the dishes. You'd run off and buy lunch for the lads because they didn't want to stop during lunchtime. They had a meeting. They had to go and do a call. Somebody was out sick. You went out to site and took over for them. So in those first number of years, you were a jack of all trades. But I think that gives you, as an engineer, a true foundation and a true understanding of what it is like to be an engineer, not just a mechanical engineer, but a building services engineer. You need to know both mechanical and the electrical. So when you're sitting in front of a client and they're asking a question about a substation or a power supply or a ventilation, you're able to answer that. You might know it in depth, but you're able to give them some level of direction or some answer that you'll be able to walk away and say, well, okay, well, I've put that question to bed for now, but I'll go back and get the real true answer, and we'll get that back to them. But I think starting up, you have to be willing to do everything and put your hands to the shoulder to the wheel, as they say, and help out with whatever needs to be done. And you're not just a mechanical engineer and that's all you do, or I'm not just the IT specialist, or I'm not just the receptionist, or I'm not just electrical engineer, you help out wherever the job is needed. You help out.
So now that you've grown, 20 years has gone by, upwards of 200 plus staff, and when you think about that same ethos that he's had at the very beginning, when you do anything to get the job done, do whatever it is that you need to do, being a jack of all trades. Now, would you say that that is still a trait that would be encouraged in Ethos, or is it more so that people would focus predominantly on, just doing their job? I'm a mechanical engineer and that's it. Would that kind of be encouraged?
I think the bigger you get as a company, the harder it is to retain culture. And unfortunately, when COVID arrived, that actually made culture even more difficult to retain, because people were sitting in their own bedrooms on Teams with cameras off, as Nicola mentioned. Like, I don't understand that. I really don't appreciate when I'm on a Teams call and there's no cameras. But culture starts to dwindle, and that's why I think it's so important to get people back into the office. Now, that doesn't mean it has to be 5 days a week, but you do need to be back into the office to understand and feel that culture to what it should be, because you want to depend on the person sitting beside you. If you're doing your job but you need a hand, you need to be able to look left or right and say, can you give me a hand here? I'm struggling, or I'm stuck on something. Or you're down having a cup of coffee. And by the way, when you go back into the office, you drink lots more coffee. You're in the tea station all the time having coffee. But you're having a chat, and you're talking about a problem or a solution, or there's a project that's coming up, and you mention something and go, oh yeah, I know that client, or I know that person, and you bring it back. So I think that reinvigorates the culture. Something with Ethos, as I said, we set up, there was 5 people from the start from one company, and then another person joined at the outset. So there's 6 of us from the very start. The 6 people are still there. And those 6 people are still instilling that culture of a can-do attitude. We're all in it together. We're going to succeed. No issue is too big. We'll resolve it. We'll also have a bit of fun on the way. We're well able to go out and have a few nights out. And so we play hard and we work hard. And I think instilling that culture all the way then through an organization, while it's difficult, it's necessary, and it's really, really important.
Thanks for that. The next question I'd have here is, what are some of the behaviors that engineers should stop doing if they want to reach the next level? I know usually this is what people should do, do this and you'll, get to the next level. I asked Nicola what, the traits that engineers should have. But I'm going to ask you, what should engineers or people, or professionals rather, what should they stop doing if they want to get to the next level?
That's probably a difficult one, because I think most of the traits that you'd like people to do is start something. But I suppose to stop would be to think they know everything. You never know everything. As an engineer, you might be a technical expert, and even technical experts within our industry still don't know everything, because it's always changing, it's always moving. So definitely, if you have an impression or give off an impression that you know everything, you will start to distance yourself from your colleagues. People won't want to work with you. If you actually are more open-minded and actually have an open arm and say, well, actually, do you know what, I don't know everything, and you can put your hand up and say, can you help me here? I think people would appreciate that a lot more than if you sit at your desk and think, well, I'm a star mechanical design engineer. I know I'm going all the way to the top. You probably will maybe get to the top, but it's going to take you a lot longer, and you'll probably lose a lot more colleagues along the way to do that. So definitely something I'd say stop is thinking that you know everything. That's probably the majority.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm going to ask if anyone has questions out in the audience before. Could we have one person at the back here? Howard, if we can get him a mic.
Hi, Colm. Howard Neville. You met me already. you're talking about culture, and I always think a company's culture is what happens when the boss isn't there. That's the real culture. But when you and the founders got together, did you actually have a conversation about what do we want the culture of Ethos to be? And how have you managed that along the way?
We definitely didn't sit down in the pub the night before we set up and say, this is the culture we want. But I think we're very like-minded people. We are very ambitious. We definitely wanted to do something different in the industry. As I said, the building services industry at that time was notorious. It was seen as a black art. Don't trust the building services consultants. They only use the contractors. Should they don't even do design. And that was something that we just said, no, we're going to stop that. We're definitely going to be an independent voice for the building services industry. We're going to design proper designs from start to finish, right through the detail. And we're going to sit down with our client and say that this tender and this price that you've got for your project is a true price and a true valuation of what it's going to cost you. And we know when that's installed, it'll work, not depending on anybody else. And I think the six of us set off on that journey knowing that that's what we wanted to do. We're going to have fun on the way, but that was definite, without a shadow of a doubt. It was going to be good fun, good crack, but it's going to be hard work. And look, we all worked for different industries and different consultants, and we knew how hard it was going to be. But we were all willing to make that commitment. And as I said, I resigned from my position. I've been in a company for 10 years, having expected my second child a month later, not knowing whether this was going to be a success or not. But we had an ambition that it would be.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else?
Sorry, just real quick. When you and your mates, Greg and all the rest, left to start Ethos, what made you confident? Because you said you had a kid coming and you had so many things planned for this. What made you confident to take that step out and be like, I'm gonna risk so many things? Your family's obviously having a big change soon. What made you confident to take that risk and take that step with your friends that this will succeed when we do this?
I had a huge trust in the Greg Hayden, our CEO. He'd come up through the ranks the hard way as well. He'd did a degree course. He worked in EEL for a while, went to England, then finished his degree by night time in the UK, and worked hard and really built a good reputation for himself and a good career when he came back to Ireland. And then I'd worked with Greg since 98, 99, and I just got on really well with him. He was open to challenge. I could always go and say, well, and I think Ciaran mentioned it, we were at a time where, you use this amount of watts per meter squared, or it's the flow and return temperatures have always been this for 60 years, so that's all you do. And that wasn't me. I always question. I'm probably known for questioning. I always question everything, just to make sure that, one, the person that I'm asking the question of is happy with the answer or the information he's given me, or that, well, maybe we look at something different and there is a new way of doing things. And Greg, as a manager, he was always open to questions and looking at things differently and being inquisitive. And it just gave me the confidence that if we're going to go into business together, we were going to be able to make this work, because we will be able to question the industry. We will definitely make a mark, and we will start to make an inroad with other clients. So we just knew that starting this was going to work.
I had one question over here.
Hey, Colm. Jake McLaughlin, quality engineer, Mercury Engineering. First time with a microphone with no karaoke. So the question.
You can sing a song if you want.
The question I had was for you, being a successful leader now. What was the one habit that you implemented that ultimately led to that success?
I suppose one habit, I write down everything. I write down all my calculations. When it was old school, you'd write down the calculation, because when you have to check back and see how did you do something, or why did you do it, I always had a record for it. And I just found, and it was probably the way I studied, I wrote down a lot of notes, and I constantly kept records. So even now, moving into sort of the more technology, I still have a notebook, but it's a digital notebook. So I keep records of absolutely everything in my notes, of what people have told me, how to design something, or a new standard, or a rule of thumb. I've always looked for more information, but I kept a record of it. The worst thing I find is a young engineer coming up and asking you a question. How do I do this? And you'll tell them, but they walk away. And you don't know whether it's gone in, whether they actually understand it, or haven't questioned why you've gone that. You've said your answer or your response, or you've given the direction, and 2 weeks later they come back over to you with the same problem. And I distinctly remember I think it was only 2 years as an engineer, and I went over to a very senior engineer with a problem, and he looked at me and he said, "Come back when you have a solution." It didn't have to be the right solution. I just had to come back with a solution. So again, I think that's something that I've always brought with me, that you actually don't just have a problem. Try and come back with, well, this is my issue. If I tried this or this, do you think that would work? Your superiors and people with more experience will absolutely love the idea that you've actually spent some time trying to resolve it yourself instead of just looking for the answer.
Hi there, it's Samuel Burgess here from Structural. My question is, what is the biggest downfall you encounter with main contractors, and what is the key quality that you look for in a main contractor?
Samuel, is it?
Samuel.
Yeah. This is a loaded question, because we do work with Structure Toad. I think it's changed over the different years. I think back in the sort of late 1990s, early 2000s, the worst thing that I encountered from a contractor was a real old school contractor who used to bang his fist on the table and shout and roar and say, "You're an idiot, what did you do that for?" Or, "We need that information last week. Where is it? You've messed up. The project's going to fail." I think Nicola mentioned, no project fails. They all get done eventually. Might be slightly late, there might be more cost, but it's not a catastrophe, it's not the end of the world. I'm glad those times and those eras have gone. Generally, most of that style has moved on. I think people are more open and amenable to listen. I think now program is probably the biggest issue for contractors, and not being honest with the program. Probably from fear of being hit with LADs and cost issues. But design teams working to a program that is absolutely never going to be hit is a killer. And it's actually deflating for the whole design team, that you work so hard, you have people in over late at night, doing weekends, and then the program gets extended by 3 weeks or 4 weeks, and you go, oh, why did I have a team in if we knew that was going to happen? So I think program management is probably a big issue at the moment. We're all short on labour, and labour is very, very tight. So we have to look after everybody, look after our young engineers that come up. We can't be constantly asking them to do extra time and more hours. So, I think working to a proper program is really important.
That's great. Any other questions? Okay. I have another one, just out of curiosity.
Just sounds ominous.
I know that in the industry, what would typically happen is that the architects would typically have, let's just say, the most authority and power, right? They would choose the consultants. They would also maybe even choose the contractors that are going to be on projects. and like it was like overnight. It changed from working at Ethos, where Ethos would be the appointed main person of contact, and then they would subcontract then to the architects and the other companies. You know, I know you made mention of that technical excellence with clients, but how did that change happen almost overnight? You know, in the industry, and it's just like it's normal now, but that wasn't the way it's ever been, even in the last 100 years.
I think it's very much sector specific. I'm not too sure it's over the entire industry. I think if you look at the commercial, the residential, and even potentially some of the industrial projects, the architect is still the lead consultant. But in the industry that we're in, that we've moved into, the data center industry, 60 to 70% of that project is mechanical and electrical. And of that 60%, 40% is probably electrical, and then 20% mechanical. So our clients have realized that, unfortunately, they've been using an architect as the lead consultant for something that's only maybe 20 to 30% of the overall project. And I think what they've looked at is that technical quality to lead a data center project is now needed from the primary part of the project. So that's where the mechanical, electrical part has become so important. Now we try to do that and manage projects at the outset from our own engineers, but we quickly realized that actually engineers don't necessarily make good project managers. And we have now set up internally in Ethos a project management section made up of actually architects, civil structural engineers, and pure project managers to manage a project. It is a very core discipline. You need to know and how to juggle so many different disciplines, so many trades, so many different requirements like permitting and planning and ground conditions and even traffic analysis and that. So you need somebody that is not just focused on their own delivery, which is a mechanical system or electrical system, but they're looking at the project as a whole. But our clients have looked at us and said, we're probably best placed now to manage that project instead of an architect. Now, don't get me wrong, there is plenty of projects out there where the architect or a project manager is still the lead, but that is changing over time.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Last question again, second last question. Looking back on your career, 20-year-old Colm comes to you on the street and he asks you for some advice on how he will take his career. He's very ambitious and he wants to get to the next level. What would you tell him?
Few things, I suppose. 20-year-old Colm, when I joined EEL at the time, and my boss came up to me one day coming out of the canteen, and he put his arm over my shoulder. Probably not PC nowadays, but he put his arm around my shoulder and he said, Colm, he said, two things. If you want to make a living, work for a company. If you want to be successful, work for yourself. Ciaran probably be an advocate of that working, being your own boss is, it's liberating, it's a great feeling. It is damn tough. It's really difficult, and there is some nights you probably won't sleep, or some mornings you wake up and you go, oh, we have to pay this or move. But ultimately, being your own boss is probably something that's definitely worth having that ambition. So as a young engineer, don't let ambition get in your way. Technical knowledge, especially in the current climate of AI, being technically savvy is not just the key anymore. I think you need to be, and I think Nicola mentioned it, communication is key. And I'm like Nicola, I absolutely hate doing public speaking. I've never really liked it. But in your job, you end up having to do it. So I always force myself to do a presentation, or you take the notes or take the minutes, try to be upfront and try to answer questions, try to put your solutions forward, try to meet people, be at a meeting early. Go 5 minutes early to the meeting, have a chat with somebody, some of your peers. You'd be surprised how open older people are to actually have a chat with a new junior or a young engineer. Stay after the meeting. Don't just rush off home. or rush back to the office. Have another conversation and talk through the solutions, or go out onto site and actually see how something comes together, or see where the problem is. Don't just look at it through a computer, because you just don't get the sense of what it's really about. Some of my longest friends in the industry are suppliers that would have been 20 years my superior. But I brought them into the office and asked them, show me the calculation. I didn't just want the solution. I said, well, why did you do that? How did you do that? And they actually were really impressed that a young engineer actually took time to have an interest in their small, minute part of the industry. So I think, always being inquisitive, be ambitious, believe in yourself, because you've gone through college, you've got your degree, you're probably ambitious to do a master's. So, you have all the technical credits, just really trust in yourself. So I think if that was a young 20-year-old me now, or my parents looking at me, it'd be a pat on the back and say, you can do it. Definitely, you're going to be successful.
Really appreciate that. Colm, thank you very much. Can we get a round of applause? Appreciate it, Colm. Did we have a good time? Great. Happy to hear it. Okay, so I have a bunch of notes. I'm not sharing them with anybody. You should have took your own. Joking. If you need some, ask me on LinkedIn, and I'll fire you my notes. Okay, so we are wrapping up for now. What we're going to do, please make sure to communicate with them, ask them questions. They are open to take mentees, I hope. So, ask them ask them questions. This is the time to do it. There's not many opportunities where you would have executives from companies in the industries that you're all in, to speak with. So please utilize this opportunity and speak to them. Thank you so much to all of the guests, the speakers that joined us today. We really do appreciate it. Can we give them another round of applause? And so thank you so much. We are going to eat, but before that, I have Connor Senior that is coming up to give us just a quick announcement before we wrap up.
Thank you very much, Tunji. I'd like to pay tribute to Tunji and his team, led by our YEA organizer, Alex Frant, as well as Jesse, Benjamin, Terence, and the old fogies like myself and Howard. I lead the mentorship program for ASHRAE, and we, as Elder Lemons, as I call ourselves now, where we've more birthdays behind us than we have ahead of us, we're trying to give something back to the industry. So I'd like to make particular thanks to our sponsors. First of all, our speakers, who I think have given their time, shared some intimacies with us all of where we're coming from, where their experience was in giving advice to the younger selves and hopefully to yourselves. I'd like to thank our main sponsors here, you can see, which are from System Air, Passive Dynamics, Ardmac, our lead sponsor for the mentorship program, as well as Ethos. I'd like to make a special thank you to the students who've come tonight, which is an extraordinary turnout. I'm not sure whether you're coming just to get a building choice for your final years. I'd like to make special thanks to those that came from the Hellenic chapter, all the way from Athens and from the UK. You'll get a chance to talk to them afterwards because they're part of the YEA program within ASHRAE, within Europe. So ASHRAE Ireland fits in with the European program, which is part of a global organization. Some of the metrics numbers are here behind me, but we would encourage, from a student viewpoint, if you are interested in a career in building services, you've had a chance to listen to some people here tonight. The mentorship program acts as an advocacy program for those that want to get involved in ASHRAE. And I say to people when I talk internationally is that ASHRAE is a family for life. Okay, so whether you join ASHRAE or CIBSE or other organizations, whether it's RIVA, there's ISPE, there's PDA, there's lots of things in various industries we're involved in, right? But I like to pick up on one point. I think that came as the theme from the three of our panel speakers is, don't just say, okay, this is the way it's been done before. I think you need to be bold, you need to be brave, you need to be inquisitive. I have 6 grandchildren. I have children in their 40s. I spend my life talking about climate change, and encouraging what I call climate warriors. So all you students here tonight are climate warriors. Don't accept the past, what it's done. Look to the future, okay? And network. We're here to help you create the future that you want for your great-grandchildren, okay? The rest of us may not be alive by the time the 1.5C disappears, and maybe it goes beyond that. So again, thank you all for coming along. We have a final event behind me here where you mentioned Colm taking notes, okay? One of the things that annoys me when I talk to people is that we're using too many programs. So people forget psychrometrics. So we have a session on the 1st of December with a guest speaker, Dan Hand from ASHRAE, Toledo chapter I think is, which is going to bring us back to basics. So if you're interested in the basics of psychrometrics, which is the fundamental part of any HVAC from a mechanical side, starts off from there. That's our next one. We have a quiz night, which we'll be repeating next year. So if the students there get involved, the quiz night will be in a pub, okay? Which means we'll have some drink, whereas tonight we wanted to be aware of our limitations and just have a dry night, okay? I know Tunji can't wait to get the Weatherspoons. So on the note, we have food now being prepared on the tables. Grab some there, don't leave any behind. Bring some for breakfast or lunch tomorrow. Have the drinks, enjoy yourselves. And thanks again, a wonderful thank you to Alex, Tunji, supported by Benjamin, Jesse, and Terence. Thank you very much. Enjoy.
Hey everybody. Okay, yeah, I'll tell them. Really quick, if anybody wants photos, please, you can feel free to use the stage. We have a photographer here if you want to get them. We'll make them available on the LinkedIn for you as well.